Welcome to the Clazar podcast, everyone. This is where we discuss actionable insights into modernizing SaaS revenue by talking to experts in the field, especially on the cloud GTM and cloud marketplaces space. And today we have such one fantastic expert and a leader with us, Dai. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Trunal. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. So, Dai, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the podcast itself, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into the space itself, and share a little bit more from your side.
Yeah, absolutely. So hello to your audience. So Dai and I lead our Google Cloud Marketplace business and go-to-market teams. And so my team's primary charter is to grow our partner business through Marketplace. So I have teams responsible for business development, category management, core P&L management, partner engineering and onboarding, partner and platform strategy. We drive a number of go-to-market initiatives in terms of also incentives and also some of the co-sell engagement with our field. And I've been in this role for about a little bit less than 2.5 years. And previously, I spent 4 years in the product group, so an area of the business called the application modernization platform. So I was helping to scale our Kubernetes serverless developer platform, as well as bootstrapping some of our multi-cloud initiatives with Anthos. And then, of course, before joining Google, I've held a number of leadership roles in product management at Microsoft and IBM. I did some business development and ecosystem work at SAP. And I also did some strategy consulting with McKinsey and BCG. And as you can see, I've kind of been in and out of different partner roles. And even when I've been in more of a product role, I've been in more like platform businesses. So therefore, I ended up working with a broader ecosystem to build on that platform. And so when I saw this opportunity to join a very high growth business area like Marketplace 2.5 years ago, I got very excited because I think I've always thrived in roles where you can bring truly disruptive solutions to the market and, helping to build new businesses that are, sustaining like triple digit growth, year over year growth, and then scaling to hundreds of millions or billions of dollars of annual net revenue. So that's the trajectory that we're on, and it's been a very exciting 2 years for me.
Fantastic. Yeah, and we'll talk about all of these in details that you shared, right? Like the run rate and the growth that you're seeing.
Yep.
We when we were doing research about the podcast, what we found is in one of your previous interviews, you mentioned that Google Cloud was at an annualized run rate of 34 billion,
Yep.
which is extremely impressive given the fact that it used to be only 4 billion in just 2018.
Yep.
Now, at the backdrop of it, could you maybe share a little bit about how the cloud marketplace as an offering has contributed to this growth, and maybe perhaps share some public data that our viewers may not be aware?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So you're right. So I've been at Google for a little bit more than 9 years, and I joined Google Cloud in Q4 of 2017. So you're right. What happened was when we publicly disclosed for the first time
Mm,
was in Q1 2018, and at that time we were at a
mm,
$4 billion run rate. What we disclosed in Q1. And then our most recent earnings announcement, we're at a 37 actually $1 billion run rate. So amazing growth over the years. But in terms of marketplace, when you think about the economics of marketplace, it drives very attractive economics because on one hand we also monetize through rev share, so there is a percentage of the gross transaction value or GTV, that the dollars that flow through marketplace. But more importantly, the partner solutions on marketplace drive significant GCP consumption in the form of
mm,
compute, storage, data, and analytics. And over time, you can imagine that the economics become even more compelling because marketplace will increasingly lead to a lower cost distribution channel and then increased deal velocity and faster adoption for our end customers. So all around, sort of a great route to market. But most importantly, when you think about our ISV ecosystem,
mm,
marketplace facilitates platform adoption. So an ISV won't necessarily choose a cloud platform because of marketplace. They'll choose us because of our data and AI and other capabilities, but they'll only invest if there's a very robust and thriving marketplace. And so therefore marketplace a very key role in terms of adoption and the ISV commit. And obviously we measure that impact through ARR and consumption of GCP. And increasingly, I've been involved in a lot of sort of ISV commit discussions, and the marketplace and go to market becomes very forefront in some of those commit discussions. And of course, end customers benefit because they'll only adopt cloud if there's a thriving ISV ecosystem that's sort of driving that platform. Now, if you look at our marketplace, I just you mentioned sharing some numbers.
Yep.
We both gross transaction value as well as total deal contract value of our COSO activities have experienced pretty unbelievable growth.
Mm,
So we've been comfortably north of triple digits for a couple of years now. And in
mm,
fact, if you look at H1 of 2023, our gross transaction value for third party solution grew at a rate of 140%
mm,
year over year. And then if you look at our growth of our ISV co-sell bookings, again in H1 2023, that grew at 200% year over year. So, based on that, I estimate that we're probably the fastest cloud marketplace and co-sell cloud hyperscaler. Now, other metrics in terms of like customer adoption, we also look at customers who are spending, say, $1 million or more on marketplace. That has increased by 6x. So you're seeing
mm.
great acceleration, not only in terms of the breadth of adoption, but also the depth of adoption, because we have data that suggests that once customers start using marketplace and after they get a couple deals under their belt, they increase their usage pretty significantly.
Mm.
And then from a selection and scale perspective, we added hundreds of new partners and new solution listings last year. So improving the diversity of the selection. And if you look at the numbers of the last 4 years, partners with paid offerings like transactable listings on marketplace over the last 4 years has increased by 10x. So just a lot of momentum across the board, both on the buyer and the partner side.
And I like a follow-up question there, I know different hyperscalers work differently in terms of how they structure the incentives internally. Is there anything that you could share for our audience in terms of how the field sellers in GCP are incentivized and aligned with ISV co-sell activities?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I mean, in terms of like attainment, we do have most marketplace solutions eligible for attainment
Mm,
through their quota. But I think more holistically, if you kind of think about it, our field reps are very motivated to work with ISVs and, of course, marketplace as the preferred route to market for a lot of those co-sell engagements. Because number one, you have ISVs that play a critical role in terms of filling solution gaps or solution completeness, or sometimes the ISV workload is a key component of a broader workload that requires migration. And as you mentioned, they either get through attainment, or we also have incentives that drive spiff. So they're very incented to work. And as I mentioned, a lot of times we find that ISVs are very key in terms of net new logos, so new customer acquisition. So all around the board, it's very high alignment and incentives aligned for them to work with partners. But also, what we find is the culture of the way our field reps work
mm,
is we have a very much a first party equals third party approach,
mm,
because we give customers choice, right? And even if we have a competing sort of first party service, we want to make sure the customer has the choice. We want to win the workload, whether it's first party or third party. So we have a lot of consistency in terms of how we market, how we sell, how we go to market across first party and third party. And we see that with the traction with some of the partners with the numbers I mentioned earlier.
got it. And I can like sitting from outside as quote unquote the consumer or quote unquote the partner customer, I can definitely attest the first party and third party equilibrium that you folks have achieved, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
In my previous experience at Confluent, also I saw it. Right now, I'm seeing it from Clazar as well. So thank you so much for a fantastic partnership.
that's great. Absolutely.
So Dai, like you talked a lot about when ISVs get listed on the GCP Marketplace, there is this need of it drives the consumption for GCP, right?
Mhm.
Similarly, on the seller side, we talked about what incentives exist for the field sellers to work do
Yep.
co-sell, and of course there is the well-known access to committed spend benefit for the sellers.
That's
Now,
right.
on the procurement side, in one of your earlier interactions, you had spoken about Google modernizing the end-to-end procurement process
Yes.
for your customers. What innovations is GCP driving, and how's that changing over time?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so many different innovation areas. Let me just highlight just a few areas. So, number one is just giving customers choice in terms of like who they choose to work with. So we are like, for example, opening up the resale route to
Mm,
market, enabling resellers, whether it be GCP resellers or the ISVs established resellers, to be able to resell marketplace solutions. So we know that customers, as they sort of scale up their marketplace usage, they're going to lean on their sell and services partners to simplify and manage a very broad portfolio of solutions. So giving that customer capability choice there. Then also, if you look at the private offer and flow in terms of the purchase flow, we're trying to remove a lot of the friction as much as possible, make it as much automated, flow through from lead all the way to sort of transaction. So, investing in a bunch of different areas regarding comprehensive billing and pricing models, multi subs under a single billing ID, the ability to offer sort of multi vendor private offers. We're also going to enable quite a bit on the product led growth and self service side. So,
mm,
traditionally this has been a little bit more for specific categories like developer tools, but we want to make sure that we have the experience for the customer to discover, trial, purchase, and deploy software. Because I think over time you will see where private offers, which is again direct sales motion moving online, some of that will start to shift to more bottoms up community or product led growth, where we can land smaller deals and then track usage, find expansion opportunities. So I think that's a growing area. We're also looking to onboard or automate as much as possible. So we have the producer portal. So that's where all the partners go and manage their publishing, their deal making, analytics, so providing a very rich experience and automating as much of the onboarding and validation process as possible. And then we're doing a bunch of things around how do we enable partners to have their third party SaaS look and feel a lot more like first party. I mentioned the first party equals third party. So one example of that is around project level cost attribution. So in typical
mm.
GCP service, you'll be able to sort of allocate cost at a project level. So we're working with ISVs, for example, to enable end customers to see their usage at a project level. So a lot of things we're doing to try to remove some of the friction and faster time to value. And then the other thing I would highlight is investment areas is what are we doing in terms of expanding new and emerging areas. So, we're doing things like data marketplace. So this is the ability
Mm.
to offer the availability of commercial data sets, integrating with Analytics Hub and BigQuery, effectively making marketplace a storefront for data exchange and data sharing. AI and ML models, this is an area we're investing as well. So we want to make cloud marketplace be that unified place where ML customers can discover, access, and leverage ML models, and whether they're from our first party, third party, or open source. We're enabling public sector, so enabling like two-tier distribution and certifications and landing zones for accreditation for some of our ISV partners. Professional services, so this is the idea of being able to offer things like premium support SKUs, training, assessments, consulting hours, sovereign cloud. So this is some of the things we're doing in EMEA with some of our partners like Talus, T Systems, Minsat, and others around how do we make marketplace and ISVs part of that sovereign cloud offering. So just a lot of investments across the board in terms of what we're doing to enable some of that friction and drive more adoption and consumption through marketplace.
Got it, makes sense. And there were a lot of like things to unpack here, but I just want to pick on a couple of threads. One is AI, which will come to towards the later half of the podcast.
Yep.
But the other thing is Dai PLG.
Mhm.
And traditionally, marketplaces have been a very like direct sale kind of a motion driven by private offers, like by far majorities, at least what we see on our side.
Yep.
How do you see that changing on the PLG side? You mentioned a little bit. My specific question is, do you anticipate that being equal in maybe a few years down the line, or do you still see, at some point in time, people will still prefer going the private offers?
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to see the shift already. As I mentioned, certainly you're seeing it in traditional categories like developer tools, but we have
Mm,
had some success with some additional areas like database and other areas. But I think the way this is going to evolve quite a bit is first, if you look at private offers, right? A lot of what happened with the private offer growth is a lot of that selling in collaboration happened offline, and it's only that sort of last step where you go on marketplace to actually execute the private offer transaction.
Mm. Yep.
So we're starting to see a little bit more upstream in terms of, hey, how do we enable things like discover and trial, and improving some of the analytics and getting more visibility to, what type of things customers may want to use based on their propensity to buy, for example, based on their where they are in terms of their committed spend for their particular time period, or what other solutions they've actually purchased in the past. It makes most sense for the next purchase. So I think that's a combination of data, better capabilities at different stages of the life cycle, improved reporting. And then
Mm.
I think when you think about PLG, it isn't sort of like a binary, it's one thing or another. You might see some hybrid combination where you
Mm.
might land like trial or smaller usage, and then you'll back that up once you expand with more of a direct sales motion. So I think a combination of the two will evolve over time. But I think, given the profile of the buyers. I think you've seen Jay McBain describe this quite a bit, where the psychology and the behaviors of some of the new generation, where millennials, for example, dominate the budget owners right now.
Yep.
They want to sort of, as much as possible, transact, discover without with sort of minimizing the type of interaction you would have with a direct salesperson. So I think at different stages of the life cycle where you'll see some of that engagement, and then other places where you basically see sort of a combination of PLG, community led growth, and a combination with direct sales. So I think it's going to evolve over time, but we're already moving there. And as I
Mm.
mentioned, some of the platform investments are enabling that.
Fantastic. That's really good to hear, Dai. We see similar things on our side where mo more and more ISVs are looking into PLG via the cloud marketplaces. So this is very, very exciting. Okay, so now shifting gears from more of the procurement side to the vendor side, which is, of course, my favorite topic. Vendor onboarding, enablement, and that whole area. But first, like, what do you think is the right stage, Dai, for businesses to start considering GCP Marketplace as a potential channel for them?
Yeah, actually, we had a discussion with the startup team earlier this week. So I think there's a lot of discussion and dialogue around this. But I would say that you need to have some form of a sort of go to market motion established in some form. So you need to have sort of pricing. You need to have
Mm.
maybe starting to build out a little bit of a sales teams, because I
Mm.
think if you haven't, for example, established product market fit, marketplace is not the ideal place to sort of experiment those type of things to see if there's a good investment. Because frankly, there's a lot of investment from both the startup side and the cloud side to, invest in sort of a cloud. Sort of go to market motion through marketplace, so they really need to think this through before being listed on marketplace. Because one of the biggest mistakes, as you may know, is they hear a lot of hype and and discussions around marketplace, and just getting listed on marketplace is not going to be enough to sort of drive pipeline and deals. So having some form of a go to market motion, thinking through a little bit
Mm.
around how you want to sort of build that cloud go to market in different stages, and setting the appropriate expectations and success metrics over time, and making sure that you put actual effort in building that is important.
Got it. And that's such an important part. Like what you mentioned is I want to pick on that here a little bit, which is what we internally call is that listing and praying mechanism, which is so many customers come to us and say, hey, we want to get listed, and they walk in with the wrong expectation of, hey, the moment I get listed, I'm going to start getting these leads, which is, as you very well know, not the case and not the motion with marketplaces.
Right.
So in order for us to guide such prospects, what according to you should be the optimal post listing strategy for ISVs?
Yeah, so I think establishing a cloud go-to-market strategy around marketplace, it combines a combination of making sure you have the right people, the right
Mm.
process, the right technology in place to enable sort of that effective sort of co-sell motion. So, like for example, on the process side, you and I've discussed comp neutrality to make sure that, for example, if you have
Yep.
the right incentives in terms of driving to specific channels, you're not going to sort of drive one versus another.
Yep.
Sometimes you might have to set up sort of a business operation or a deal desk, for example, to handle a lot of the private offers. And you need people who are very focused on this as well. You need to have a sort of a product owner, somebody who's actually specifically
Mm,
responsible for managing and maintaining that integration with the marketplace. And then having, as I mentioned before, the right sort of like multi horizon goal around how you want to scale up. Like, for example, one of the things that we see quite often is how do you build some of the early momentum
mm,
as part of your marketplace selling journey? So, making sure that you have a very, like a foundational, you have a very strong differentiation and
mm,
strong point value proposition with Google Cloud, for example, because a lot of our sellers have a lot of choice to which partners to work with. So you need to have a very compelling reasons for our frontline sellers to want to sort of engage with you, right? So that's a very critical foundational piece. Then you need to make sure that you understand at least how to work with the cloud hyperscaler. So in the case of Google Cloud, understanding how the FSRs, our frontline sales reps, are organized, how we have ISV specialists and how they're aligned to the regions, and how some ISV specialists are assigned to specific named managed partners, and others are more sort of regionally focused. And the
mm,
regional focused ones, they're interested in working with all partners for that particular region, and they're responsible for connecting the sales teams, whether it be the Google sales teams with the ISV sales team. And then what I would also say is, lean in and try to get some of those early wins,
mm,
because I think building a track record of success is important. And don't take sort of a broad, shotgun type approach. Pick a segment, a region, an industry, whatever makes sense where you can lean in, and then making sure that once you have a couple of wins underneath your belt, it becomes sort of a self-feeding process where you can work with your internal Google sellers to sort of describe some of these. We have something called win wires,
mhm,
where we can sort of describe some of these great wins together. And good news travels fast. And then once you have sort of a reputation within our sellers, they'll reach out and want to engage on specific deals. So
mm.
those are the things that I would think about getting listed, which is how do you sort of ramp up and having the realistic expectations around success.
And so, like what you mentioned, Dai, is fascinating, right? Like having this motion, having exec alignment, having very tight co-build, co-market story with GCP. Are there any official programs that companies out there can utilize from GCP side? Like what kind of help is available if I'm looking to lean in with GCP right now?
Yeah, I mean, we have a number of sort of co-marketing initiatives. So we have an opportunity to sort of like once you get listed, how do you sort of drive, launch campaigns to drive traffic to your listing. So we have a sort of a co-marketing effort that partners can work with. We also have specific incentives around workload adoption. So we recently launched an initiative around Marketplace Customer Credit Program, which is where a customer for eligible ISVs can basically identify if it's a new workload that they're bringing to GCP through Marketplace. They get credit in the form of GCP credits. That's a percentage on the first year
Mm,
ACV. So if you can help land like a new workload on Marketplace, GCP, there's an incentive for customers to transact specifically.
got it. That's super helpful. Thank you so much. Okay, then like last question in that section. Traditionally, Dai, both you and I have been in this industry for a while.
Mhm.
Traditionally, I'd seen the security, enterprise security infrastructure, ML or enterprise applications
Yep.
find success on cloud marketplaces. I was super excited with the announcement that Shopify is now on the live on the GCP marketplace. Do you see a growing trend of the diverse range of like SaaS businesses starting to sell on the GCP marketplace now?
Yeah, I do. I mean, so first with Shopify specifically, as you may know, Shopify and Google have a very long and rich history together. So there, Google Cloud is Shopify's preferred cloud provider, and we've done a bunch of things in terms of like retail infrastructure for some of the great, Black Friday, Cyber Mondays. I think we've
Yep.
shared some of the peak things that we've been able to manage with that. But to answer your question, absolutely. So the reason why I think security, analytics, database have traditionally been the biggest categories because they tend to be more tied to things like migration, cloud migration. So those
Mm,
tend to be very specific solutions that customers look for. But as customers sort of ramp on Google Cloud, we see areas like verticals like retail, financial services, media, healthcare, sustainability, as well as the general broad horizontal apps. These tend to be the largest growing
Mm,
categories in our marketplace over the last 1 to 2 years. And increasingly, as you say, customers are saying they're going to procure business apps, and again, verticals and horizontal business apps through marketplace. And I think the core of this is you're taking the foundation of what marketplace is enabling, which is you're taking sort of like a procurement process that is inefficient, it's drawn out, it's very painful, and you get all the benefits where you can streamline the procurement process, you can minimize like the vendor review cycle time, and you can get sort of consolidated billing in vendor relationships, and then you get all the benefits that the platform provides in terms of like access controls and governance and reporting. All of these things extend to other solution categories like business apps, and what we're seeing more and more is the growing cloud budget, and you're incorporating a broader set of third-party solutions into a growing cloud budget and putting it through a very sort of efficient process and model.
mm. So Dai, now I want to take you back to the thing that you mentioned at the start, which is AI is like AI is changing pretty much every industry right now. You name an industry and AI is
Yeah, yeah.
changing that industry. What role do you think AI will play or has played in the whole cloud GTM adoption space? So that's one question, and the next question is, in addition to AI or apart from AI, what trends do you see or anticipate in the next, say, 6, 7, 10 years, changing the trajectory of cloud marketplace or cloud GTM altogether?
Yeah, yeah. So let's take AI first. So I think AI will play a number of key roles. So I think first on the general sort of application side, so more and more of our ISV partners are leveraging Gen AI and powering their solutions and complementing the experience they provide to their end customers in terms of like a richer experience. And in fact, we actually launched on Marketplace a new filter or category called Gen AI. I think we've grown to like sort of 50 solutions now. So specifically,
Mm,
customers can basically look at or
mm,
search for the Gen AI category and find it very easily as part of the marketplace experience. So I think that's one piece. The other piece is around looking at from a partner and customer purchasing journey, which is how can AI sort of augment that experience. So if you're an ISV and you're looking at like pipeline creation and deal registration and propensity to buy. So how can we surface or leverage AI to
mm,
provide sort of a richer sort of pipeline deal management experience? And then the same thing from an end customer perspective. We mentioned PLG and community-led growth, which is as you move upstream into more search, discovery, recommendation, we Gen AI as part of the platform and automation with some of our partners can provide a much richer purchasing journey at every single stage. So I think that can help quite a bit. Now, the other area that I think is very interesting, and this might be more specific to data providers or cloud AI ML model providers, is what
mm,
does marketplace provide in terms of monetization opportunities, right? So
mm,
when you think about the opportunity in terms of like ML models and data assets and AI frameworks, we have a tremendous like innovation opportunity because customers want to use or retrain models with their own data or maybe third party data they purchase from third party providers,
mm,
and app developers using data sets. They want to enhance a lot of their data services with ML models. So if you work with Google, it's pretty exciting to think that you can combine like BigQuery powered data and analytics, Vertex AI for prediction inference, and then the commerce provided for marketplace to accelerate like all of our AI and data assets and services for partners. So it really becomes sort of like establishing Google Cloud as that preferred provider of AI and data solutions across all of our ecosystem. So you'll start to see some of this thing being rolled out. We've already enabled, for example, data marketplace. So this is the ability for customers to basically subscribe or transact data. And then eventually you'll see the same thing on the AI side with third party models, open source, and first party as well. So that's, I think, the first part of your question. Then when you asked about like sort of like what's evolving in terms of like, what's going to shape marketplace, over the next couple of years, I think the biggest opportunity is, historically, when you think about marketplace, it's all ISV product and SKU centric. But
yep.
more and more, we think about like customer and business outcomes. And it really takes a number of different partners, not only just the number of partners involved in the deal and sort of go lives, but also different partner business models. So if you're a sell and services partner, you're not sort of a core product in ISV, how can you participate in
Mm,
marketplace value creation and delivery? So we're going to be enabling that, right? So, whether it's through, as I mentioned, professional services as a formal solution category, or enabling a reseller to resell
mm,
marketplace solutions, but also how do we shift the conversation where we can enable more collaboration online? Because I think historically, you think of all these partner business models and types, like whether it's a reseller partner or a regional SI or an ISV, they can come together and to sort of drive a business outcome for our customer. But typically they would do it in a very siloed way, because the way we would typically sort of engage with these partners is we have specific incentives, we have different co-sell motions, we have different programs and differentiation. And I think the opportunity is how can we enable marketplace to become this unifying platform and digital collaboration platform for all these different partner business types. And what that basically means is you got to enable things like multi-vendor private offers. You need to enable the ability to sort of combine like a ISV product SKU, a professional services SKU, a data subscription, an AI ML model, and then pull that together. And only a sell services partners or a number of different partners can pull that together and sort of collaborate to sort of drive the business outcome. So I think that's the big opportunities. How do we shift from something that's very product and SKU centric to something
mm.
that's a little bit more solution and business outcome? And I think marketplace, by enabling more diverse listings as well as a way to sort of collaborate across the different partner and business models, will be sort of the next sort of wave that we'll see.
Absolutely, and I 100% agree with that, Dai, because many times people don't want to just buy a tool to get the job done. They want to solve a problem,
Yep.
and that problem may or may not be solved by just one tool. There could be like professional services attached, as you talked about. There could be another like a combination of two or three different ISVs coming together to solve that specific problem, which is what SIs and GSIs do at a high level. So like I'm very excited for that future to happen on GCP for sure.
Yep, absolutely. It's coming. It's coming.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, Dai, so ultimately, you've played a critical role in GCP's current success, and you've seen, a lot of GCP marketplace's journey. What is your personal highlight in this whole journey?
Yeah, I mean, so as I mentioned before, I've been at Google for over 9 years. I've had been very fortunate to have very three very different roles, and I continue to learn, develop, work on great technologies, work with great people. So that's why I've been able to sort of take on new challenges with the company. But I joined Cloud, as I mentioned before, in Q4 2017, and the ability to work on two different business areas to go from like a $4 billion annual run rate to now 37, and again also profitability. So we've been profitable for 4 quarters now as well. But it isn't just the pure top line growth; it's the ability to work on what I consider more strategic value added services and experience. So like when you think of cloud, historically, it's all about infrastructure as a service, and how do we shift the conversation from the atomic unit of consumption from like core compute hours or terabytes per month to something a little bit more interesting, like automated service oriented platforms and services. And I was able to do that both on the application modernization platform side, but then also on the marketplace side. And in both areas, being able to drive and incubate and bring these disruptive technologies to market, but also sustain triple digit growth over multiple years. And in the case of the application modernization platform, we're multi-billion dollars, and then same thing on the marketplace side. So that's probably what I'm most proud of, which is not just
Mm.
working on just sort of top line growth, but just things that just drive sort of impact with the end customers, but also drive more stickiness to the platform, which are more higher layer services.
Okay. Before we leave, Dai, any parting thoughts or anything that I didn't ask that you think it would be useful for our listeners?
Yeah, I think a lot of your listeners know this, but I mean, it's a very exciting time in the industry, because I think what we're seeing is experiencing is there's a fundamental transformation in terms of how business software is being bought and sold, and so we're kind of making history together, right? So you can see incredible momentum across the board for Google Cloud Marketplace in terms of like business results, partner momentum, some of the investments I mentioned in terms of the platform. So very excited to work with the broader ecosystem and then jointly grow our business together, because this is a rocket ship that we're on, and we're not slowing down one bit.
That's awesome. Dai, thank you so much for your time. This was fantastic, chatting with you through GCP Marketplaces. I look forward to seeing you at Google Cloud next. But again, thank you so much for your time.
Yep. Thank you for having me here.